Well, hi. Thanks for joining us again. This is our first presentation. It's going to be with Reverend Jake, and it's going to be direct action for climate justice.
Hello, happy Earth Day. This is Jake coming to you from Chicago, which is the traditional homeland of at least 30 indigenous groups of people, including the Potawatomi people of the Council of the Three Fires, the Illinois Illinois Confederation of Tribes, including the Cahokia, Miami, and Michigamea peoples, and the Ho-Chunk people. I'm really excited to talk with you today about how we make everyday Earth Day and how we use various strategies to act and advocate for our planet. This presentation is going to come in 3 parts. Part 1 is what we can each do in our individual lives to take care of our planet. Part 2 is what we can do together in small groups, in partnerships and collaborations, in medium-sized groups, in massive groups, across all the different communities we're a part of, strategies that we can use for collective action, for good for the planet. And part 3 is how we might best do these things, how we can do well while we are doing good. Tips for effective collective direct action. So let's look at part 1. What are things we can each do? We can start by supporting the organizations who are already doing our work for us and doing their part on our behalf to take care of the planet. Those might include the World Wildlife Fund, Greenpeace, Sierra Club, or other environmental groups. I'm curious what your favorite environmental organization is and how you like to support that organization. We can each demand that our U.S. federal government abide by the Paris Climate Accord, which we have somewhat recently disavowed or evacuated from. We can call on our legislators to step up for the environment. Our local elected officials, our statewide ones, all of those elected officials, all the way up to the federal elected representatives. Now, even though 97% of climate scientists affirm that climate change is real and provides a ever-present danger to all of us, we have over 100 elected officials whom we put there in their positions who do not agree that climate change is a thing, and they especially don't agree that we all need to work together to defend against it. These include lots of people even on the House Committee of Science, Space, and Technology. We each need to find new ways to promote continued dialogue about climate change. Some of us have been talking about climate change for a really long time, and some of us are just beginning to try to figure out how to bring this topic into our consciousness and our collective discourse, our everyday conversations, and so on. But even if we're tired of talking about it, even if it's frustrating or demoralizing, we cannot stop dialoguing about climate change until it is no longer a threat that we all face. We can each be attuned to the environmental choices made by companies we patronize, the environmental impact of the products that we purchase and consume. We can let these companies know what we expect from them, which is that they do better, that they do their best to pollute less, to consume less of our non-renewable resources, our natural resources. And we can let these companies know that if they don't work hard in these regards, we will find other products and other organizations that better meet our expectations. We can each advocate that our local municipalities use more green energy alternatives so that we can each get some or even all of our own electricity and our local communal electricity from solar, hydroelectric, wind, and other kinds of renewable energy sources. We can each work to clean the air near us, to keep that clean, to protect the air by cutting down on our own carbon emissions. There are obviously numerous ways to do that. Feel free to share in the chat box your favorite way to cut down your own carbon emissions, reduce your own carbon footprint. Some of us buy carbon offsets and things like that to help to work against the other kinds of ways that our activities and the things we consume impact the environment. But we also can be kind to bikers and pedestrians who are doing us all a favor by polluting less. Other ways we can protect clean air near us are to advocate that our city or town or county, our jurisdiction, invest in public transportation, make it easier for people to get from point A to point B without using their own personal carbon emission vehicles. We can advocate for more green space and that our local areas prioritize making spaces green and clean. We can do our own part to make those spaces cleaner and healthier and more plentiful for all of us. We can push our region to become more bike and pedestrian friendly. There are lots of concrete ways to do that, and we can elect local officials who are going to prioritize that and work on that with us and for us. We're also each responsible for protecting clean air everywhere. There's so many sources of air pollution that we can work against, and we can work to protect the lungs of our planet, the rainforest and other forests who help the planet take care of itself by cleaning its own air. We can make sure to protect those forests as well. Also, we need to work to protect clean water that's near us, and that's easy to do close to home by not dumping chemicals or drugs or things like that down the drain. Knowing where our water comes from before it comes out our faucets. Knowing where our jurisdiction gets its water, what is done to make that water drinkable for us, what happens to it after it goes out down the drains and in the storm culverts. What happens to that water? How does it get cleaned? And where does it go after that? We can also all and each advocate for clean water everywhere. This might be a really uncomfortable analogy in the time of a global pandemic, but the truth is that we all drink from the same glass of water. All of us, everyone who lives in the water, everyone who lives near the water, everyone who drinks water, everyone who has water rain down upon them. We all need to be invested in keeping water clean everywhere. We also can protest hydrofracking, uranium mining, dirty coal, and other kinds of destructive practices that are leaching out non-renewable natural resources and coughing out pollution into our world. We also need to be thinking about how environmental problems disproportionately impact some of us. Environmental justice is not just for the planet and non-human animals, but it's for people in their communities as well. Because pollution disproportionately impacts poor people and communities of color. And we all need to work to make sure that everyone has a place to live and work and play that's safe and clean and free from toxins and waste. Next, we're going to move into part 2 to think about how we can come together with others to make good change on behalf of our environment. Things that we can do together collectively to take care of the planet Earth. One of the first kinds of strategies is how we express ourselves and make the public aware of our thoughts and feelings with letters to the editor or op-eds. These can be in traditional print media, like newspapers, but also in various kinds of social media platforms, magazines, blogs, and so on. We can put our personal face or our story as a context to the issues, and make the world aware of the sort of personal toll of a particular problem to do with the environment. If we want people to join us in this, then we have to have a strategy to provide support in the case of any kind of blowback or backlash or trolls. Another really effective battery of strategies includes sending postcards, phone calls, faxes, or letters to elected officials or other public figures. This provides direct pressure to them because they need our votes, they need their good reputation, and so on. They're sensitive to what people think about them, and we're letting them know what we need from them in order to patronize their business or give them our seal of approval. And if we want lots of people to join us in this, which makes it even more effective, then it helps to provide scripts and info so that it's a little less threatening or challenging for an individual person to make that phone call. Some of us are sort of terrified of calling our senators, for example. But if we know what we're going to say in a quick, pithy way when we do that, it helps us be brave about doing that. And so if we want to lead others, we can model that by providing scripts for them. We want to orchestrate the delivery of these things so we can provide a kind of deluge of postcards showing up in garbage bags full to a particular target or organization and sort of let them know lots of people are involved and we really mean business. Or we can choreograph a sort of slow, steady trickle so that someone knows we're not forgetting that they need to do a thing that we need them to do. My favorite tool for this is ResistBot. So you can text the word resist to the number 50409, and it makes it super easy and painless for you to contact your elected officials and let them know what you think about a particular issue. You can also tweet out your opinions this way, or even have them write a letter to the editor for you, and they do all the hard work, so you can do it just in a few seconds on your phone. Everyone's heard about petitions. There are pros and cons to petitions. They're easy to sign. They demonstrate broad-based support, but they're also really easily ignored by the target to the petition, and they might not result in real or long-term engagement of the members. So if I sign a petition, that may or may not mean that I know about or care about that issue for the long term. One of the best ways to make petitions work well is if you have some kind of creative delivery of that petition. Some kind of dramatic or funny or disruptive delivery that sort of adds visibility, cranks up the pressure, helps sort of quantify the number of signatories to that petition, and so on. And you can engage media also to support delivering that petition. So do a press release that says, we got 1 million signatures that say we want our river cleaned up and we want this factory to stop polluting it, or we want our elected officials to have a strategy to clean it up. We can all do in-person meetings with our targets. If that's your alder person who represents, the street you live on, all the way up to your federal elected officials or people who are candidating for a position, or, other stakeholders or other people in the community, the police commander, the neighborhood watch group, really anybody who has the power to make a change that you seek is a good person to meet with. These can be super effective for negotiating a particular solution or getting somebody's cooperation, because when I'm sitting there meeting with them in person, they have to answer me in some way. It's really important to be strategic, though, about how this meeting works. It's your meeting. You need to take charge of it, have an agenda, be tight and rehearsed about how that works, have a really solid exit plan. If the person isn't listening to you or being respectful to you, then end that meeting on your own terms. Get up and walk out if you need to, or just let them know, I'm not happy with the outcome of today's meeting. I'm going to be checking back with you to see if you've thought about the things we've asked about. Probably most of us are aware of marches, and a march is a strategy that can be really effective to rally lots of support, to communicate lots of power, to raise awareness to an issue. And you can do marches in symbolic or iconic locations. There are lots of marches, as you can see in the picture on the bottom right, that are in, our national headquarters in this national community, and that happen in ways that sort of get the attention of the people working there in elected office for us. But there can be other kinds of symbolic or iconic locations to do marches. And it can be really powerful to have a really large group of diverse people, but also it can be tricky to make sure everyone's disciplined and sticks together and is safe, and that no violence erupts, or that we don't have interlopers or detractors that steal the stage or steal the agenda or make things more chaotic. Another, maybe more solemn strategy that might involve a large group of people is the vigil. Vigils can be used to protest all kinds of things. They can be very potent expressions of grief or dissent or resolve from a lot of people. They're a powerful way to express righteous indignation, but to do it silently. It's undeniably peaceful. It's hard to vilify. You can't talk bad about a bunch of people standing and praying together with, at candlelight or things like that. Sometimes it's been used so much that it doesn't get the kind of attention that we wish that it would. So you can add art or music or occupation or other kinds of components to enhance the effectiveness of the vigil, or make it really sort of stand out or get more attention. Another kind of direct action is a blockade. This is any kind of getting in the way of entrances or exits, or blocking traffic, or just disrupting the regular flow or pattern of things. It's used to shut down something bad or protect something good. This is a way we can use our body to disrupt progress and to demonstrate resolve. We're serious about this. We're not going to tolerate you going about your business as if everything is fine, because it isn't. It can be really dangerous, requires lots of discipline, good group cohesion, lots of consensus about what we're about and what our strategy is to get there. So you have to be really coordinated about it and have good leadership. Hunger strikes are another kind of strike we might have heard about. They can attract lots of attention and inspire lots of sort of guilt or shame or sympathy from someone who's doing wrong, someone who is not doing well with the environment, for example. But they can have really high personal costs. They can take a long time. They can be dangerous for individual people or for groups of people, but they're really good for demonstrating resolve, for letting people know we're serious about this. We're willing to take a toll on our own physical well being to see some progress, to put some pressure on about this. It's best done with other people because one single person on a hunger strike is going to make way less impact than a whole bunch of people striking in concert with each other. Again, it's best to have a really clear goal, know when you've accomplished that goal, have a really clear end strategy. Boycotts are probably things we've also heard about. This is how we hit them in the pocketbook. Can be really effective with businesses. If people refuse to patronize a business or buy a product, it's only a matter of time before that company has to change their evil ways and do what we need them to do. So if we can get broad-based support and participation with this boycott, that's how it really works best. Lots of kinds of ways that we can sit in or encamp to defend against encroachment or eviction, to assert Indigenous sovereignty, to highlight big problems, things like that. The person on the bottom picture there is Julia Butterfly Hill, who occupied a great redwood tree for over 2 years to prevent that tree and others, its neighbors and friends, being cut down in a vast deforestation plot. You can learn about Julia Butterfly Hill and others who have done similar kinds of things, but there are lots of ways that we can build pressure on a target, get lots of attention for our cause by digging in and staying put until we get the change we need. Again, these can be a little bit risky. They really require good group unity and wisdom and good discipline. Everyone needs to be on the same page about what's going to happen and how it happens and when we're going to stop. There can be often big logistics, like if a bunch of people are going to sit in the state Capitol building for a really long time until the governor does something that the group needs, then somebody's got to be dropping off some pizzas at that place. There's got to be a plan for people to get their medicine. How are people going to go to the bathroom? Things like that have to be sorted out to support the sturdiness and longevity of that occupation. Lots of forms of creative disruption, making noise, doing it quietly, but just getting attracting some attention and getting in the way of something someone's trying to do. This can happen in the middle of some business meeting or when somebody's trying to do a thing that's part of their regular business that is bad for the environment or bad for the people. It's a good way to sabotage powerful figures and reframe or tell another story about what's going on. It's pretty easy to carry out with a small group of people. Even one person can disrupt a gathering or something that's happening. It doesn't take a lot of planning or coordination or expense. You just go somewhere and do something to get in the way of what's happening or to attract some attention. It can include signs and songs and glitter and theater and humor, anything that gets attention and causes disruption. but it can also really backfire if the target somehow keeps the sympathy of their audience, or they somehow claim that you have attacked or infringed on their free speech rights and so on. Just the thing that's important to note here is that we're always all about, or should be about, having more free speech instead of less free speech. So we're not trying to shut down someone's chance to tell their own story, but it's important to keep in mind that people do not have a constitutional right to say things that are harmful to other people. It is not my free speech right to be verbally abusive or derogatory to someone else. And someone cannot claim that they have a right to say things that are oppressive as part of their free speech. There's so many cool and interesting and creative ways that we can use art, theater, music, demonstrations, rituals, spectacles, and so on to make a point, to get attention. And lots of people can use their skills. Often it's super safe to do this. These are all examples of art or other kinds of spectacle or theater that are used to get attention for the cause of the environment and to demonstrate resolve. Usually this kind of thing is safe to do. That's a benefit of it. We all need to be involved in education about the environment, education of little humans and big humans alike. It's really important that we're helping build buy-in to this cause by providing real facts, real education to people about what's at stake and about who's causing the problems and what the possible solutions might be. Banner drops are easy to do. Any one of us can do it anywhere, anytime. Doesn't cost much money, can be fun. These are some examples of banner drops. Some of them are low tech and easy. Some of them are very high tech and probably most of us would not be capable of pulling off. But they're really good at getting attention, rebranding a target, providing a message frame or a caption for something that's going on. So this is an easy thing for any one of us to try, but the more people are involved and the more banners that get dropped and the bigger they are and the bigger splash they make, the better. Guerrilla projection is fun. It's way easier than it might seem. On the screen are lots of examples of how this happens. They're good for directing attention to a particular situation or target, framing an action or a message, mobilizing people. Usually it's legal. It's probably super cheap to do. All you got to do is have something that projects onto another surface. It can have very high impact. It can be sort of embarrassing for the target. It can also be really interactive, so you can have people post, or tweet about a thing and project that sort of message field or chat box or whatever onto a ginormous screen. So, you get you and 200 of your close friends to be chatting messages, and those are scrolling up and down a building or things like that. You can project statistics, pictures, things like that, all as ways to do public education and attract attention. We always have the possibility of making any of the actions we do be characterized by really awesome, creative, artful visuals, especially the bigger the signs we have, but obviously any materials, pamphlets, flyers, and things like that. These are two examples of some really cool signage in what seem to be marches But in our next part, in part 3, we're going to look at some strategies, some tips about making these strategies work really effectively, some best practices and so on, and there'll be a chance to see some more pictures of some really cool visuals. So join us. Welcome back. Every Day is Earth Day, part 3. Now we're going to quickly talk about some tips and tricks to help us do these things well. One of the most important things is if you have a big group of people and you want to work well in concert, you got to make sure everyone can hear you. And that involves having a good public address system, having megaphones throughout that are used strategically well together in concert, or using a strategy called the mic check, where the leader says a thing really quick and simple, and the entire crowd repeats that. So that keeps everybody on target with the same message. It's always helpful to coordinate with other groups or actions. The more people who are working in concert, the better. Either having the same kind of action happening at the same time in lots of different places, or having lots of different strategies being used around the same time in a coordinated way or in a short period of time. It's especially important to make sure that everyone has the same messaging, the same symbols, and the same sort of agreements about your ethos for your actions. If there's some possibility that police can become involved in your action, it's good to have a police liaison, someone who is designated to interact with the police and negotiate with them, and to have the whole group be trained and disciplined about how they're going to engage with police, to be aware of what your rights are, what the laws are, the pros and cons of having a permit, and be prudent about deciding whether or not to face arrest. Often having people who have some celebrity, some fame, some power be involved in the cause can be really effective. Here are some really famous people on the screen here who are fighting for the environment. Jane Fonda is 82 years old, and she gets arrested every single week in actions for the environment. We don't have to be arrested in order to be standing up for the environment. There's so many ways we've talked about that we can all pitch in and work with other folks. But if Jane Fonda can do it at 82 years old, then none of us have any excuse for not. It's just important that everyone stays on message, uses their position, their fame, their power strategically, is on point with their message, and so on. It's also sometimes really helpful to use clergy in strategic ways. Here are some examples of some really creative, awesome ways we can use visuals and art to attract attention, to convey a story, to have fun and be creative. There's some giant puppets on the screen there, some cool signage, sometimes something as simple as everybody wearing the same article of clothing can be helpful. These folks on the bottom are wearing gas masks, which conveys a certain thing, is kind of evocative. So it's just important that everybody kind of knows what those symbols are about. Here's some examples of some more visuals that people have used in standing up for the environment. And it's not hard to find ways to be creative and use your artistic skills and performance skills for this good cause. So it's up to us. We've been talking about so many things that we can do as individuals and as different groups of people to make the kind of change that we need to stop global warming, to take care of the environment, to halt the extinction of critical species, and so on. So what are you going to do to pitch in? So what are you willing to do as an individual? What are things you want to work on with others? Whom might you work together with on your goals for the environment? And what are some new strategies that you might be ready to try? Thanks for spending a little bit of time with me learning about how to fight for the environment. If you have questions, thoughts, feedback, feel free to reach out to me. I'll be around to respond to things in the comment line. I hope everybody has a terrific Earth Day and that you think of ways to bring this energy forward in your lives. So mote it be.
Thank you so much, Jake, for that really informative presentation. Our next presentation is going to be at 11:15 with the Reverend Selena Fox, and she's going to present about 50 years of Earth Day.